Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Moger. I'm the president of the United Federation of Teachers, and it is our honor to host you all today. And I first want to thank you all for being here and being such an important part of what this city and state is about to endeavor. So thank you all very much for being here, and give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Thank you. So we all know we have a major challenge in front of us. And the importance of it is extreme, and you all know what the different avenues that this will affect for our city and state. When we're listening to the politics, they're always talking about congressional seats. For me, I'm like, yeah, that's important, but I want to make sure as a New York City resident that we're getting what we're supposed to be getting from the federal government. I want to make sure that I don't have to go and get forced to have horrendous fights in our capital because we didn't do our job in the census, and whereas there's fights about education and transportation and health care, when so many of those fights could be avoided if we do our job correctly. And we know at the national level there are those who don't want us to meet this challenge, correct everyone? Yeah. Let's just put it out, let's just say it, let's just get it over with. There are people who are constantly working on trying to get us not to meet this challenge. And that motivates me. That motivates me a big deal. So you have my word, because my organization, the United Federation of Teachers of New York City, we have already started organizing political groups for every district in New York City, specifically for the census. Now, how we put this all together and how we all work together is why we're here today, and we're going to be doing more and more of this coordination. So, to me, it's not like I would put a middle finger on a shirt to the federal government, because that would be inappropriate and not right for me as a teacher to represent things that way. And I would tell teachers, because right now we have teachers across the city doing lessons on the census, but it's more about what they're doing. It is civic responsibility, the fact that every resident is to be counted. Every resident is to be counted. So we're all here today to begin this road, and I want to thank all of the different partners that we have. It's wonderful, the announcement yesterday about the state and their funding. We have wonderful partners at City Council. I know Julie Menon's going to be here later. Corey Johnson's going to be here later. But we started this push last year saying we know that we cannot perform what we did 10 years ago. Are we going to do better than we did 10 years ago, folks? Are we going to do a lot better than we did 10 years ago, folks? Right now, I'll check, but the odds from the federal government is that we're going to perform worse. They're projecting New York City at 58%. I don't know if there's odds in Vegas, but we should check. Because we can all say, we know we're doing much better than 60. We're going to go over 70. We're shooting for 80, 90. Correct, everyone? Yes. Are we going to get that done? Yes. Now, is it going to be hard? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I thank you all, because throughout my term here at the UFT, we have been able to get great things done by working with so many of the groups that are in here, working with from the community ground up. It's always great for people to come in and do all of this stuff up here, and that's important, and it's people need to get the message, but I look at this as if we were teaching a class for a semester. First, we have to get everyone to have the facts. What's the real thing? What's the educational process? Then it's how do you have to engage them so that they understand that this is really important and will make a difference in their life. And then the last piece for a teacher is, once a child or a student has gotten that inside of them, is how do you motivate them to take action, to move, because it will make their life better. That, to me, is the whole campaign of the census for New York City and New York State. So I look forward to taking this journey with all of you. I thank you all for being here again. We will win. We will meet this challenge. And in the end, we'll have when we do this, I promise you all, we'll have a big old party back in this room again. Is that okay with everybody? So I want to thank both of the Stevens, Stephen Rubenstein, Stephen Choi, for being great partners already in this, and for moving forward on this whole thing. Abney has always been there for New York City. And under your leadership now with the census, we're like, all right, Abney's coming out. We have to get this done. My conversations, my meetings with Stephen have been phenomenal. He's like, we cannot allow this to happen. The federal government owes this city what it's supposed to give it. We are only telling them we want what we're supposed to have. And they're trying to tell us we're not going to get it so they can send it somewhere else. And Abney is our partner saying we're not going to let that happen. Stephen Rubenstein, please, thank you so much, and come on up.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to say that one of the best moments in this was the day Michael Mulgrew called me and said, I am leaning in, and I'm going to put the power and muscle of the UFT in our organization to help make sure we get this count right. And we could not have a better ally than Mike Mulgrew. So thank you very much. First, let me say, thank you all for coming. We will not waste your time today. We got a lot of ground to cover, so I'm just saying very quickly. I'm going to introduce Steve Choi, our partner. This man is fearless, I have to say, and we could not have a better champion for this cause. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Choi.
All right, good morning. Good morning. Okay, we're going to have to try that again. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you all for being here at the Census Summit. First, I want to thank the amazing Mike Mulgrew and UFT for hosting us. Beautiful space. And thank you for your partnership. We are going to need the teachers in this fight. And of course, thank you to Abney. You guys have been such an amazing partner, not only on the summit, but on census work overall. And that has been so critical. So to thank you to Stephen and all of the amazing Abney folks. Friends, for those of you who are 1990s rap fans, you all know that Jadakiss, Lil' Kim, and DMX got it right 20 years ago, because for New York, for the census is about money, power, and respect. First of all, the money. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars going to our schools, our roads, our hospitals. This is critical. And so every New Yorker that's not counted is worth $3,000 of that precious federal revenue that we are giving up. We cannot afford, literally cannot afford to give that up. But don't forget about the power. Because the fact is that if you are not counted in the census, you literally do not count, and you hold no power. And so the last time when we didn't count enough New Yorkers in 2010, we lost 2 congressional seats. And as Mike pointed out, we are slated to lose another 2 congressional seats this time around. That's the most seats of any seats in the nation. Those are actual congressional votes. You don't think we could have used those congressional votes when it came to votes around things like the DREAM Act or tax reform or health care? You bet we do. And then about the respect. As Mike mentioned, there are folks out there that are trying to make sure that we as New Yorkers do not get what we actually deserve. And so we need to fight back against that. The Trump administration, make no bones about this, is using the citizenship question. They tried to use the citizenship question specifically to target big immigrant-rich states like New York. Thankfully, we beat them on that. Let's get a round of applause for that. We beat them on the citizenship question, right? We beat them on that, but our work is cut out for us. And one of the good things is that a lot of the key internal questions have actually been answered around things like government funding. As folks have mentioned, there was a press release yesterday, and it is confirmed. There is $60 million in New York State and city funding that has been confirmed for census outreach. That is an amazing accomplishment. By my count, that is $58 million more than we had in 2010. And that, friends, that has been a long fight, right? And a lot of people who are leaders in this fight are in this room today. So thank you to everybody to make sure that we're going to get the kind of government investment that we need to make sure that we have a full census count. So now that that is over, we are less than 5 months away from Census Day 2020, about 132 days. That's the time that we have to make sure that we are all rowing in the same direction. How do we make sure that we are canvassing and reaching out to the communities in the way they need to be? That we're using 21st century methods to get the messaging out, the right kinds of messaging out to all of New York's diverse communities. And most importantly, how do we make sure we're creating an army of stakeholders, community leaders, New Yorkers who are going to make sure that we're going to get down to the business at hand, which is counting every single New Yorker. And really, that's what I think is what's so unique about the census. It's a unique opportunity when we are all aligned, when we're all rowing in the same direction. No matter what ends of the political spectrum you might be, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, whether you're a real estate developer or a tenant organizer, business or organized labor, we all have a stake in making sure that every single New Yorker is counted. And so that, to me, is really the promise of the census, where we can all make sure that we are all moving together and we have one goal, especially at a moment when we are so polarized. So I want us to be able to take advantage of that promise and be able to be united in a way that New Yorkers have never been before. And if we can do that, there's nothing that's going to stand in our way. That is what this conference is about. Thank you, welcome, and let's get this show started.
So all of you, more than anybody on the stage today, will drive our city's success in the census. Reaching your trusted networks will be the difference between an accurate and fair count, and honestly, our communities coming up short for what they deserve. So look, if you're in this room, you know why the census matters. We don't need to convince you, but we all have to convince other people. ABNY and our coalition of business, labor, not-for-profits, we want to volunteer our skill set to the network to help do that. We want to be your trusted partners throughout this process, just as you are trusted to your communities. And while we'll talk a little later, to quote Elizabeth Warren, we have a plan for that. Let me be clear. We want nothing from you in return, other than your time to help our city get the count we deserve and being open to the idea that we can do more together than we can do apart. So before we can get started, I just want to take a moment to recognize a few people. I want to thank Carl Weisbrod and Darren Walker, Darren of the Ford Foundation, Carl of lots of things, one of a great New Yorker, recently of HRNA, who are co-chairs of our Action Organizing Committee, and Melva Miller. Melva Miller is ABNY's Executive Vice President in charge of running our census effort. This event was her idea, and she was the prime organizer. Thank you, Melva. We know it is your love of community and just your general awesomeness that will help us get there. Thank you, Melva.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, so you had your coffee. I just want to thank everyone for coming out this morning. I especially want to thank Stephen Rubenstein for his leadership and believing not only in the vision of bringing multiple stakeholders together for a grassroots, community-driven process, but also putting his money where his mouth is and putting his resources. So I want to thank you so much, Stephen, for all that you've done for ABNY as well as the census effort. I'd also like to thank the ABNY's Organizing and Action Committee. They sort of lead the work and are our experts on the ground, stating our action plan. And I see Carl Weisbrod here, John Sylvan is here, Sean Donovan is here, UJA and Catholic Charities. They've really been able to lend their expertise so that we can execute things like today. I also want to thank New York Counts 2020 and Steve Choi. They have been the folks on the ground steering the community-based organization, giving us guidance on where to invest our resources in our network to make sure that we have an accurate count. I also want to thank today's planning committee. Could the planning committee members stand? We have representation from the Center for Law and Social Justice, the Chinese American Planning Council, Citizens Union, JCRC of New York, the Central Labor Council and Labor Counts, the New York Counts 2020, the New York branch of the NAACP, and the New York Immigration Coalition. You guys rock. Thank you so much. And I'd also just like to take a really quick moment to acknowledge ABNY's executive director, Angela Pinsky. She's here somewhere. I know she doesn't like the spotlight. She's in the back. But I really want to thank her for her support and her guidance also in making all of this happen, and the rest of the ABNY team. Now down to business. The reason why we came here. You didn't come here to hear me thank half the room, right? We're here to talk about the census. So the purpose of the day is to energize you guys, to thank you guys for all the work that you are doing, because you are the ones on the ground doing the outreach to communities. But we want to make sure that we are providing some additional tools and tactics that you all can use as you do your work. So today, to begin, we're going to start with the baseline of information about the 2020 census and the process. And with that, I'd like to introduce Ian Hull, who is the Deputy Regional Director for the New York region of the U.S. Census Bureau. And Ian is here to find out how much you all really know about the decennial census. And with that, Ian, please come to the stage.
Thank you, Melva. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Abney, for inviting me here to this critical meeting. I'm pleased to see so many people coming out to ensure that we do get a complete and accurate count during the 2020 census. To start off this morning, it would make sense, being in the home of amazing education, advocacy, and empowerment, that we're going to take a little quiz together to test and see how much knowledge you have about the 2020 census. So I'm going to walk you all through a short little quiz this morning. It's a test, a quiz. Whenever teachers said quiz, it kind of lowered the fear factor for me, at least. So, however you want to say. Okay, so I think you're gonna get the instructions on how to participate. So if you have a fancy smartphone, which you'll be able to use to respond to the 2020 census, go ahead and pull that out now. We're not gonna tweet, I don't think. Am I in favor? Okay. All right, so it looks like we're gonna follow along on the screen together. So you're supposed to go to, I think, the website listed at the top. So it's www.menti.com, and then there's an access code. So I'll wait till everybody gets there, and then I can read off the access code, but you can also see it on the screen. And that code is 336108. We're all going to be able to play along together. All right, so one more time, it's menti.com and then 336108. Let's see how we do. Is it kind of working? Nod of heads, or were you there? Seems like we're there. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first question's up there. Go ahead and respond. Looks like over 50 people have already responded, which is awesome. We'll give a few more seconds to test the question. Again, the question, if you're not following along on your smartphone, it's the decennial census counts all members of your household, including children aged 0 to 5. And it looks like the overwhelming majority of people got this answer correct, and the answer is true. And this is incredibly important. There has been a long-standing undercount of children and infants under the age of 5. And we need to make sure in New York City and throughout the country that the message is that everybody counts, including our youngest. And sometimes they are the most vulnerable, or the people that can receive the services that the census will help to ensure are delivered to our communities. So we need to make sure that we're working in each community to ensure a complete count of children and infants under the age of 5. Let's move on to the next question. So the next question is, the decennial census determines funding for Medicare and Medicaid. Don't share the answer. All right, looks like 150 people responded. That's awesome. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, so again, the overwhelming majority of the room got this question correct. The answer is true. As Michael Mulgrove said at the beginning when he kind of kicked this off, we're talking about money here. And we estimate that $675 billion is allocated on an annual basis based on decennial census counts. And what do I mean by that? I mean programs such as Medicare and Medicaid, could be highway funding funds, Head Start programs, school lunch programs, all receive funding from the federal government based on the decennial census population counts. So it's incredibly important that we count everyone to ensure that the services that our city relies on, that the state relies on, will come from the census. All right, let's move on to the third question. I'll read it out for everybody that's not following along on their phone. The decennial census determines how many seats in Congress each state gets. All right, here comes the answer. All right, we're almost unanimous here. So the answer is true. So we're talking about the 435 seats of the U.S. House of Representatives. At the end of every census, those seats are reapportioned to the 50 states. So as Steve said when he kicked us off this morning, we're also talking about power here. We're talking about ensuring everyone has equal voice and equal representation in our democracy. And that's why the census is in the Constitution. It's right up there in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, because we recognize that in order to have an effective democracy, we must count everyone. Next question. The U.S. Census has counted its population every 10 years since 1790. This one's a little trickier. Yes, a little slower to get to 150. All right. Yeah, but still, overwhelming majority of the group got the answer correct, which is true. We have conducted the census ever since 1790. It was the first census. Want some trivia? Maybe there's some civics teachers out there. The first census was overseen by the current Secretary of State in 1790, which was Thomas Jefferson. The U.S. population was just over 3.9 million people. New York City, just as it is today, was the largest city enumerated in 1790. Real cool trivia, it was about 33,000 people living in New York City. So a little bit smaller than it is now, but we have been doing it successfully since 1790, following the Constitution and Title 13. Uh-oh. Looks like we already got an up. Oh, I think because people might have, I don't know. We'll see. Okay. I think if someone jumped on maybe early and answered a question, unfortunately this one, but it's right, so at least we got 100% accuracy on this question. So that's good. And this one is probably one of the most important questions out there. Oftentimes when I introduce the census to a new group, I say that the census is safe, that it's easy, and that it's important. But I start by talking about safety. Because I think we would all recognize here that if people do not feel safe, they're not going to respond to the census. So we need to talk about safety first. And Title 13 is that safety thing. So all your information can never be released to any federal, state, local law enforcement, or any government agencies whatsoever. I'm going to move on. Next question also got answered, but we also get 100% as well. The Census Bureau employees who have access to the census data have sworn a lifetime oath to protect that information. That is accurate. We do take an oath for life to not share that information. Maybe we'll be able to participate in this one. There we go. You guys can help with this one. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. We all get it? All right, the majority again got it. The answer is yes. There are 4 ways to respond to this census. You'll be able to respond for the first time online. You'll also be able to respond to the census calling a toll-free number and speaking to a Census Bureau representative. Everyone will also have the ability to respond to the census using a paper form and mailing it back to the census. And if you choose not to respond online, on the phone, or using that paper form, people will have will be visited by census takers next year to collect that information. Time's limited. We're going to move on. Got a couple more questions. All right. Again, most of the room got it right. The answer is true. If you are a student who only lives in the city 6 to 8 months a year, you should complete the census in New York City. The answer is yes. You're supposed to respond to the census where you live the majority of the time. So if a student, for instance, is living in a dormitory in New York City, they should be counted here in New York City. All right, here come the questions. Has anyone started to figure out a trend yet? But is there a trick question? No. Not on this question. The answer is true. We will never ask any information about Social Security. We will never ask anything about bank account numbers, ask for money, all those things, big red flags that it is a scam. We will not ask about Social Security numbers, and we will not ask about the citizenship status. Let's move on to the next question. If you are not a citizen of the United States, you should still be counted on the census form. True or false? Sharing some answers. I like it because it was the right one. I'd like to have an editorial change to this. It should, instead of saying should, it should say must. And that's the answer, is that everybody must be counted on the census, and that includes people that are not citizens. Everyone must be counted on the 2020 census. All right. So we got some people that got different amounts of points. I have been told that there are prizes for everyone at the end of the day if you passed this early morning quiz. So thanks for playing along with me. I appreciate it. And again, thank you for inviting me, and I hope there's a great conference today.
All right, now on to communications. I should say my day job is in the public relations business, and it's clear to me communicating about the census is a unique challenge. So I state the obvious when I say we live in a batshit crazy news and social media information market. Loud opinions often drown out considered views. Donald Trump became president screaming on Twitter. Nuance and attention span is literally dead, right? And memes about puppies and kittens on toilets travel farther and are stickier than actually real important news to people. So you add to that, like nobody really wants to talk about filling out a standardized form. By the way, look, to be honest, when we talk about the census, we are not selling sugar. We are selling spinach. Now, maybe you like spinach, and it's good for you, but honestly, most people would just rather have sugar. So to be successful, we must all figure out not just how can we speak, but how can we be heard? How can we convince New Yorkers to do something they might not want to do something they might actually be afraid to do. And I'll say, there is no single bullet, there is no single move, no silver bullet in today's information market that will do that for us. We will need literally thousands and thousands of interactions, microtransactions and touch points to convince people to do this. And but I think this is going to be exhausting, right? Because we have a lot of people to reach. So I think where we come out of this is that we all need to use best practices to tell the story, the best way possible to humanize this so people can actually care, and to use the most effective channels so we actually penetrate. So it's essential we do this well. I think it's essential we do this well together. So if you're here, you are the leaders who are going to reach New York. Each of you are trusted by your own communities who deserve to be counted. So we as ABNY want to be your trusted partner working alongside with the city and the state. The city's efforts, led by Julie, include $19 million in grants. That is part of the $10 million. In that is the $10 million from the council. Councilmember Rivera's here, and Speaker under Corey Johnson will be here later. And look, I think there's real money from the city and state to do this well. So. But where ABNY wants to come in, we want to volunteer. We want to leverage our partnerships and our resources to make sure you have the support you need. So today we're announcing that ABNY is going to create a pro bono pop-up public relations strategic communications agency. So what that means is if you ever wanted your own free public relations firm, today is your day. So. Now, the sole purpose of this agency will be to advise your organizations, if you want, and provide resources to help you successfully communicate about the census. And we will do it for free, or more precisely, Abney will pay a group of experts to work with you for free. So while today we'll go over the key building blocks of communications and running comms plans, please know this is not just a one-day seminar. In the next month or so, we'll be hiring a group of full-time communications pros, people with private and not-for-profit experience, people with campaign experience that you can leverage to help us all get out the count. Our intention is that the pop-up agency will help you tailor messages to your own community, craft communications plans to reach your audiences, determine the best way to use social media, advise on digital advertising campaigns, and of course, share across all of us the things that we can use to make this simpler. In addition, the Abney Communications Committee, my agency, Global Strategy Group, and John will be up here soon, will host free workshops and boot camps to help you prepare for the task ahead, including media training and digital strategy. By the way, if you have ideas of workshops you need, please let us know. If you have resumes of people you think will go well on this in this pop-up agency, please send them to us. The agency will work for the duration of the census. We figure we'll start at the beginning of the year and we'll go till the end of July. But we won't really, I think it's going to take us a little time, so we hope to open our doors in January. We'll have a simple screening process in our, for people to work with us. We'll be sharing more information about that, but basically if you're in this room, you're kind of who the people we were hoping to help. Look, we're not going to be able to do everything as this agency. There's literally too much to do for all of us, but our hope is that we will give each of you access, if you want, to an advisor who will help you navigate the issues around communicating around the census. So before I turn it over to my colleagues, let me just say one last thing. Thank you all. I hope you guys find today helpful. Here's what we're going to do for the rest of this morning. So you're going to hear about research that Abney commissioned that gives us insight into what the public thinks about the census. We're going to do best practices on messaging, like the theory of how messaging will work on this kind of a matter. We have some messages ourselves. We've done some testing. By the way, we're in the market now with a whole new group of messages, and we will have those results, we think, in December. We will share that with everybody for free. Please use it. Please send it to other people. And then we're going to talk about digital and how to use it for best effect.